What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the TCG Empire YouTube channel. Today we are taking a look at a fun deck. We are going to be taking a look at Skeledirge EX. Now, normally we take a look at meta decks, but with me basically going through every meta deck that I can think of, the only ones not being like Arc Dura variants, those aren't really played right now. I figured that this week, before 151 drops, we would have kind of a fun decks playstyle, just so that way you guys, have some kind of shift from the meta stuff. If you guys want to, check out some decks that, might not be the best in the meta, but they're definitely fun. So today we're taking a look at Skeledirge EX, as I mentioned. A big shout out to Zach. As you guys know, Zach is my man. He helps me with everything. And the one thing that he definitely helped me with was figuring out this deck list. Skeledirge has been something that he has been working on for, I want to say, months at this point, and he has kind of perfected the list. It's pretty spicy. So, if you guys don't know what Skeledirge EX does, which if you pay attention to meta, I doubt you do, but it has a very unique attack. Burning Voice, it does 270 damage, and then it does 10 less for each damage counter on you. Normally, this seems awkward, but there's ways to get around it. You also do have the useful Vitality Song, which does 50 damage, and you heal 30 from all of your Pokemon, so that can be useful. But the main attack in this is Burning Voice. And being paired with that is Armarouge. Now, Armarouge has the Fire Off ability. As often as you like during your turn, you can move a Fire Energy from one of your bench Pokemon to your active Pokemon. So, this works well in succession with cards like Cheryl. Pretty much, you set everything up to where you can pivot yourself into a free retreater like Pidgeot EX, and we'll get into that. And you can move all the energy to the Pidgeot. Use Cheryl to heal all your damage off of things like Armarouge, your Skeledirges, so that way they're still hitting 270. And then retreat into the Skeledirge, move the energy up to it, and it works out perfectly. So as I mentioned before, we are playing a 2-0-2 Pidgeot line, and we are also playing a 2-2 Arc line. The goal behind this is to set up as much as you can and as fast as you can, with being a stage 2 deck and having kind of multiple pieces. Starbirth allowing you to search for any 2 cards, and then with the Pidgeot you have Quick Search, which gives you a 3rd card for the turn that you use Arc, but then it gives you, 1 card at any time throughout the game, which is fantastic. So not too much to the list. We are playing a Vengeful Punch as well as a Vitality Ban. Now you can mess around with the tools. You can use Cleansing Gloves if Lost Box is heavy, or if you're actually wanting to consider this deck. Lost Box lets you use the Vitality Song with Skeledirge to actually KO Comfies and Sableye, as well as heal you, so definitely something to consider. Vengeful Punch is in here, though, just because Chin Pao is your worst matchup. So it means that Skeledirge can take a knockout on 2 Chin Paos, and then the third, 2 Prizer that you KO, you can actually attach this to Arc, hit a Chin Pao for 200, and then if they KO you, they take 40, so they get knocked out, and you go from there. But overall, super solid. And then we have Magma Basin just to kind of excel the extra energy. You usually put the energy on Armarouge, that way you can move it to Skeledirge so you don't have to damage it, but that's pretty much it. This deck is a ton of fun. As always, the deck list will be posted right here so you guys have a full clean view, and it will also be posted in the description so you guys can copy and paste it into Pokemon Trading Card Game Live. But with that being said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's video. If you do enjoy it, do me a favor, smash the like button, subscribe, turn on post notifications, comment a crocodile emoji down below for our boy Skeledirge. And with that being said, thank you again, Zach, and I'll catch you guys in the gameplay later. Alrighty, guys, into game number 1 with Skeledirge. Going to see exactly what we can do. My opponent is using a Fire Coin and Fire Sleeves, so if this is Charizard, we actually are favored against Charizard because Charizard can't one-shot us, so if we're able to get the first prize down, we should be okay. My opponent... Ooh, hiccups. My opponent letting us go first. And that start would have been great had we had a basic. Fortunately, we don't, but it's not the end of the world. And we do mulligan twice, and my opponent is playing something with fire and Bibarel as well. So, they could be playing the starter deck. Not too sure. Sometimes on the casual ladder, you run into certain things. And looking at this start, the start's not bad, but it's not good. It's awkward, if anything. We do have the ability to power up a Skeledirge if we need to, so it's not the end of the world, but it's awkward. So my opponent is playing Arcanine, so Arcanine can't one-shot us, and my opponent does let us go first, which is great. And we actually do have a solid turn 2, because the way we're going to sequence this, next turn we're going to Arc, we're going to grab the Pidgeot. Pidgeot can grab us the... we can Arc, grab Pidgeot. We can grab Arc for Pidgeot and Skeledirge, and then we can actually kind of set up here. So what we'll do is grab Fuecoco as well as Pidgey. And we can actually play a supportive for turn 2, which is great next turn. So we'll just pass here. We are not going to be able to attack next turn unless we hit Basin. Basin will allow us to put 20 on ourselves. But we kind of don't want to be in too much damage. My opponent just going for the research, not using those Ultra Balls and stuff. If you guys are a new player, make sure to, thin the deck as much as possible if there's cards you might not want. My opponent just passes, so we are in a okay spot, and we actually do draw the Charcadet as well. So I think what I'm going to do here is just, take the turn to set up, and then next turn we'll start going for the attacks. So we will use that Arc V-Star, and we can grab the Pidgeot. And we have the Rare Candy and the Skeledirge already, so we can actually grab ourselves... we could grab Arven. Arven's not really going to be too useful, though, right now. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we could grab. I don't think so. I think, honestly, what we just go for here is the Energy Search, because we'll Rare Candy Pidgeot, then we can Rare Candy Skeledirge and attach to the Skeledirge as well. So we're pretty solid right now. So we can Rare Candy into the Pidgeot. Pidgeot going to be able to grab us the other Rare Candy that we need. We can Rare Candy into the Skeledirge. Use that Energy Search just to start getting some energy on the Skeledirge. That way we can hit as much as possible. Because we do need to hit 280 in order to KO Growlithe. So, there's nothing else. The switch I can save. I don't feel like I need to be super aggressive right now. I'll hold on to the research just so that way I have access to the switch. That way it's one less card that, is useless off the research. I could have switched into the Pidgeot, and I should have done that because then I could have put myself ahead. So that's definitely something to keep in mind, but off the rest of everything, I think I am A-okay. We'll switch into the Pidgeot next turn, play the research. We could potentially grab Iono too, just so that way we save a Skeledirge. I don't think I'm going to need more than one, but it won't be too bad. We're just showcasing the setup aspect of the deck and what it can do. So my opponent attaching the Defiance Band, not going to be too useful. And what we'll do here is just switch into the Pidgeot, which I should have done as I mentioned. And then we can draw. So we do get the Vitality Band, which is huge, and we do get the Artisan as well. Artisan will allow us to grab anything that we may need. I don't think there's going to be too much. The Artisan benefits my opponent, but do I need it right now? I don't think so. So what we can do now, just use the Quick Search. Quick Search will allow us to grab a Fire Energy, which means now we can start dealing damage onto this opponent. There's the one Skeledirge. I'm trying to think if I need to Artisan here. I think Artisan's... It's not greedy, but I'm not going to get KO'd. But I will use the Artisan now, because if my opponent manages to deal damage to Skeledirge, I need to be able to... I meant to grab a Fuecoco. If my opponent was dealing damage to the Skeledirge, I needed a fresh one to be able to deal enough damage to the Arcanine, but it's not the end of the world, and we do get rare candy, which means that we would have been able to rare candy into another Skeledirge. But it's not the end of the world. We can play Iono next turn or grab a research, so my opponent going for the boss's orders, so we will be able to switch. My opponent going into the arc, and we can even attack with the arc if we want to, so it's not the end of the world. We do draw another Fuecoco. There's the one that we were looking for. So we have the Fuecoco. What we'll do here is just quick search, grabbing us a switch. And our switch is unfortunately prized, so I think what we'll do here is just swing with the Arceus. Just because it does give us, you know, a couple more cards to work with. We can grab some energy, that way we can retreat and start going through. And then we'll use the Jacques in order to grab the Armarouges. I'll grab both just so that way they're evolved in case one gets KO'd and it thins the deck. And then we can use the Armarouge with the Fire Off in order to bring up 2. And then we can search with the Arceus in order to grab some more energy and allow ourselves to retreat and pivot into some more next turn. So we can retreat for 2, bring up 2 with Skeledirge. So setting up how we'd like to, this board looking phenomenal. If we had Radiant Greninja, we would be able to accelerate some more, but you know, there's not too much that we're going to be going for. And my opponent able to use the Artisan, but I don't think that it's going to benefit them too much. Grabbing the Growlithe. And there's the attachment to the Growlithe, and we can actually boss KO the Growlithe next turn. Meaning that my opponent only has consistency cards. So there's the Radiant Zard. Radiant Zard could be a little bit tricky. But it doesn't deal as much damage as the Arcanine. So we'll just go into the Pidgeot here, as it does have that free retreat. And then we can retreat into the Skeledirge, move the energy, and we actually don't lose energy this way, meaning we don't have to manually retreat. So my opponent passing their turn. And now what we can do is just to make sure that we have the Skeledirge in the deck. We'll go here. We'll use the Pidgeot quick search. Grab the Skeledirge. We can go into the Skeledirge and then retreat. We'll save the one with the Vitality Band, as it does allow us to hit 280. And then we can just move the energy to the Skeledirge. And we can hit here for... We could go for the Arcanine, which I don't hate. My opponent isn't going to be in a spot where they can set up a Charizard in one turn, so we'll just use that Burning Voice, 270, taking a prize card, not allowing my opponent to set up while we have access to any and every card that we could ask for. And we still have a boss in the deck as well as Palpad, so we're looking great here. We have the energy to set up, and, you know, with the ability to have 6 energy, it means that if this Skeledirge goes up at all, we can move 2. It means Skeledirge can attack, and we can actually set up the arc as well. So, my opponent unsure of what they want to bring up here. My opponent can attack for 2 fire energy, so if they do have something like a Magma Basin as well as a Switch, they could potentially power up the Charizard. But again, we do have the Switch in our hand, which means that we're able to deal with the Charizard if needed in order to KO it. And we could even search out more energy with the Arceus V-Star if we wanted to KO and go from there. So my opponent promoting the Bidoof, and I feel like their turn may end here and may concede, as they do seem like they are a little bit unsure of what they want to do. So at the end of the day, grabbing the second Armarouge, or the second Charcadet, wasn't a bad call. So now we just have to wait for my opponent to do their thing. And again, we do have boss's order, so we can KO this Radiant Charizard as well next turn, providing that it's in the deck, which I believe it is. I'm pretty sure I saw it. And if it's not, we're still in a good spot with having these Skeledirges as well. So my opponent taking a while here for their turn, probably AFK or unsure of what they want to do, and my opponent just passes. So what we'll do here is just use the Pidgeot for the quick search. Quick search will allow us to grab the boss's orders. Now we can set my opponent back quite a bit and use that boss's orders, bring up the Charizard, go into that Burning Voice, taking another prize card, and now my opponent is in a very awkward and uncomfortable spot. We even do get a fire energy, meaning that we can power up an Arc as well as the Skeledirge, so that way everything can attack. Rather than there just being 2 on each, now we can have 3 on the Arc as well as 2 on each of the Skeledirges. This card is so pretty. It's just, imagine walking through and just seeing a ghost crocodile just walking with somebody. I don't know how I'd feel, especially a fire ghost crocodile. It'd be something that's a little bit peculiar, but my opponent here most likely going to, swap things out. And my opponent is inactive for too long. So that was game number 1. And from that, we will hop right into a game number 2. Alrighty, guys. Into game number 2 here. Unfortunately, losing the coin flip. So we'll see what my opponent wants to do. Hopefully, this opponent is playing something like a meta deck or does get, a bit better draws. Just so that way the match is a little bit more interesting. I feel like the first game that we played was more of a setup towards, showcasing exactly how the deck is supposed to set up and how it does. And now, hopefully we can, be in a spot where we'll go and be in a great position. So we do get to go first. Unfortunately, this hand is what you would call abysmal. We do have access to Artisan, but unless we find a way to get an Arc out, I don't think we're going to be doing too much in the coming turns. I think we're going to be on the back end of trying to set up. Artisan can grab more Fuecoco, but that's about it. So I need to hope to start something like Battle VIP Pass, or finding a Arc, or an Arc. That'd be how you pronounce that. So my opponent taking some time here. Hopefully their start isn't too rough. So my opponent putting their prizes out, and they are playing the Chi-Yu EX. So we do get rare candy, which isn't bad. Rare candy does mean that we can actually potentially set up how we need to. So we'll play the Artisan. Artisan will allow us to grab the Pidgey. We'll just take a look at what's prized real quick. So we have both Charcadet, both Skeledirge. We have all of this. We have both Armarouge, Cheryl, Arvin, Jacques, Research Boss, Iono. So an Iono is prized. We do have 2 Ultra Balls in here. We do have 4 rare candies, which is good. Battle VIP passes are useless after this turn, but they're in the deck. We have a Switch prized, and we do have our energy. So the prize is not looking too bad. Definitely could be more awkward. So what we'll do here is just play an energy onto the Fuecoco and pass. What we're probably going to have to do is, I'm not too sure. It's going to be super awkward. So my opponent going for the Clavel, allowing them to grab 3 basic Pokemon with 120 HP or less. We're going to be kind of on the back burner of things. So my opponent grabbing Charizard, or Charmander, Bouffalon, and Charmander. There is the Bouffalon, and it does have the old school Booffer ability. Not the exact same, but definitely is something that is fun. So there's the Charmander coming down. And my opponent just using Jealousy, and they do get rid of an Arc. Super unfortunate for us. And the next card that we draw is the Battle VIP Pass. So what we'll do here is Artisan for the Fuecoco, just so that way we have it. And then what we'll do here, go into the Pidgeot. Pidgeot will allow us to grab the Arc, which means that we can start to potentially set up for the next turn. We could have grabbed a supporter, but I feel like we're in a decent enough position right now. My opponent is going to be able to hit 100, so that is something to keep in mind. But providing that, you know, my opponent doesn't have much going on next turn, we can actually attack with Fuecoco. We might have to put 20 damage, but definitely isn't the end of the world. So my opponent going into that Charmeleon. And there's the Artisan. My opponent has another Charmander in their hand, so I'm not quite sure why they're not benching it. Grabbing the Larvitar. And at least in this sense, we do have a game on our hands. We are going to be able to attack this turn and attack the GU. And we do have access to Artisan. Artisan can grab us another... we'll probably grab the Armarouge because I don't think we're going to be KO'd in any world next turn. We can KO the GU. And then we'll grab the Armarouge, and then just so that way we can start to set up. And then Armarouge will allow us to kind of pivot into things a little bit better rather than things being awkward. So, sorry, Charcadet, not Armarouge. I keep thinking of its evolution, but we'll grab the Charcadet off of the Artisan and then Magma Basin. So, my opponent attaching the energy, taking a prize card. Now, we're not in an awkward situation. We're just in a slow situation, but having access to Pidgeot and Arc this turn means that we get to see 3 cards, any 3 we want. And in reality, those 3 might be Rare Candy, Skeledirge, Energy. And that's really all we can go for. So we'll promote the Pidgeot since it does have the free retreat in order to pivot. And we do get a Rare Candy, which means that that's 1 less card we need to search for. Which means that we can actually this turn search for another Fuecoco in order to set up. So we use that Artisan, grabbing us the Fuecoco. And then what we can do is use the Quick Search. Quick Search going to be able to grab us the... does the Rare Candy change anything? I can't... Okay, I'm going to grab the Skeledirge right now because I need to think about what I need to do here. Okay, no, it doesn't change anything. Okay, I'm not as stressed now. I thought I missed sequence for a second and I was a little bit scared, but now what we can do is Starbirth, and Starbirth will allow us to grab the energy. And we'll grab the energy search just to thin a card, and then we can grab the Charcadet, meaning that we can attack this turn. So we'll bench the Charcadet, go into the energy search, attach to the Skeledirge, and then we can also use the Magma Basin. And thankfully next turn it means that we can potentially start swinging with a Skeledirge that has no damage on it. So we can retreat, go for the Burning Voice for 250, taking 2 prizes and putting us back into this game. Thankfully, my opponent hasn't gotten something like the Charizard out, and we do get Ultra Ball as well, which is fantastic. So my opponent going into the Bouffalon. If my opponent evolves into a Charizard here, we might just have to swing on the Charizard. If they don't, we can KO the Charmeleon just to, you know, kind of take away from the energy acceleration potential. And the only issue is that my opponent does get to flip until they get Tails, so... Alright, only 50 damage. That I'm not too worried about. So, what we can do here, we do get Rare Candy, so we could actually get another Skeledirge out, which I don't hate the idea of. So what we'll do here is go for the Magma Basin. We'll go on to the Charcadet. Then we can Ultra Ball, getting rid of the Battle VIP pass as well as Arc. We'll get the other Skeledirge out, and then we'll go for the boss's orders. We do have 2 boss in the deck. And the one thing to note that is prized is our Pal Pad, so we'll Rare Candy into the Skeledirge. Use the Quick Search on the Pidgeot. Being able to grab the boss's orders, and the combination of just having Arc and Pidgeot in any deck just is phenomenal. So we'll go into the Charmeleon. We'll just hit for 20, meaning that we do have the ability to KO, take a prize card, and we do get Ultra Ball, which means that next turn we actually can Ultra Ball for Armarouge and then use Pidgeot for a clean 0-card hand research. So my opponent attaching to the Larvitar, benching another Charmander. There's the damage rush. Can my opponent go all in? There's the heads, the tails, so only 80 damage this time, but it does add up. Thankfully, though, we still can KO the Bouffalant. So we do get Switch as well, which means that we can potentially switch into the Armarouge. And I don't hate that. We could grab something like Jacques, which would thin some cards, which means that we still have access to Ultra Ball, which means Ultra Ball could get anything else out that we needed. So I don't hate that. So we'll go for the Pidgeot, just grabbing the Jacques in order to thin. And grab that Jacques, grabbing the Armarouges. We can evolve. And from here, honestly, everything just is looking fine how it should be. I forgot that my opponent does take less damage, so we'll just use the switch into the Skeledirge here, and then use the Armarouge, and then next turn we can grab something like a switch again, or grab ourselves, you know, a Cheryl, just Cheryl into the switch, go from there. So we'll just use that Burning Voice, 250. And now we're in a position where we can kind of cycle through. We do get a Fire Energy as well, which means that we can attach from hand. And actually, the nice thing is that if we do hit something like a switch in general, we are able to actually go from there. My opponent getting out the Tyranitar with the ability to hit 230 is a little bit awkward, but it's not the end of the world. So we do get Arven. I'm trying to think if there's anything that we absolutely need here. I don't think so. I think if I have Switch in the deck, I can just switch into Arc and Swing, and then that puts us in a good position. So we'll Arc here. Sadly, we don't have the Switch, but what we do have is the ability to search out an energy. So definitely not the end of the world. And we can grab that Vitality Band just to kind of thin the deck. So now what we can do, and what we're going to have to do, is actually there's not much we can do, because we could attach Retreat Basin, but then that's only 2 energy, and either way I'm not KOing. So what we'll do here, if we had the switch, that would have been fantastic, but it's all good. We'll just honestly use Burning Voice for 50. My opponent's going to be able to take 2 prizes here, but we are going to be able to kind of set up how we need to. And the nice thing about Vitality Song is it heals 30 from each, so this Armarouge is safe. So if we decide to Cheryl next turn, we can just Cheryl, move the energy up, go from there. So opponent going for the energy recycler. I don't think my opponent is going to be able to do too much here. Cheryl is a very good card in allowing us to set up how we want to. My opponent going for route, taking the knockout, which means now we can promote the Pidgeot. And I'll show you guys a neat little trick in what we can do, which gets more energy on the board and also works super efficiently. So What we can do here is we can use the fire off to move the energy to the Pidgeot. We can use the magma basin. I could have put the energy on the Skeledirge as well to showcase it and leave 2 on Armarouge, but I kind of want to showcase the Armarouge here just because it's cool. So we'll move the energy up to Pidgeot. And now we have this damage on the board, and it's like, what are we going to do? We can use the Ultra Ball just to thin a couple cards again. We'll grab the Greninja, but we do have the Cheryl in the deck, which means that now we gain the ability to use that Pidgeot with Quick Search, allowing us to grab the Cheryl, Cheryling away all of that damage, and now we have some free retreat into the Skeledirge, meaning we can use the Armarouge, bring up to the Skeledirge. We'll leave the 2 energy on Pidgeot just in case we have to attack with it at all. We can use that Burning Voice for a fresh 270, taking 150 damage off of the board as far as damage that was on us, and now we're in a very good spot, and honestly, we don't have to stress about anything. So the setup, it's super nice when you can pull it off, and most of the time with the way that Zach has worked on this list, it's super consistent at being able to do what it's supposed to do. My opponent going for the Heat Tackle, which means now we can just attach, and we can use the Burning Voice again for 270, taking our last price card, and that being the final game with Skeledirge EX. So I will say this deck is a ton of fun. It's definitely something that's rogue, but can do well within the meta. You just have to hope that you can draw well and set up. But, you know, as you guys saw today, we didn't play meta decks in the sense. But the fact that people aren't really playing Skeledirge kind of showcases that it's not really in the meta. Might be on the bottom tier of it, but it definitely sets up well and does well. So if you guys did enjoy today's video, do me a favor, smash that like button, subscribe, turn on post notifications, and with that being said, I will catch you guys in tomorrow's video. Later.